All right, everyone, this is where we left off in class. Just finished up with this. So we've got our title on the screen. Should be able to see our characters. There they are. And of course, we have we've added the title, and we've added the start battle, and of course we have the ability to play like we did before. So we're going to continue on from there. I also went ahead and from Moodle, I placed this up on Moodle, I downloaded our fight audio as well. So in my game manager, I should now be able to add that fight audio. Again, that's up on Moodle to download and put in your project. So in my game manager script, we put in our variables and we got those set up. We hadn't really done anything else. So in our start, we're going to turn off the player attack buttons. And those buttons are being held under Hero and Skeleton. Hero.GameObject.setActive to false. And skeleton.GameObject.setActive to false as well, and these are these two buttons right here. So if I jump back in, and you'll see now that my start battle button is there, but neither one of the player buttons is there now for them to do damage. So we've turned those off. So now we're going to add in a method. When the start button is pressed, not going to take any variables or parameters. We'll talk to the title. And we're going to turn that off. So that is title, and we're talking about this variable right here. .GameObject.setActive, and just like we did the buttons, we'll set those to false. The start button as well. We're going to turn that off as well. And then we're going to determine who goes first. We've got a variable up top called player turn, currently set to 2. Well, now we're going to set it to either 0 or 1. So remember, it will be 0, 2, and that'll return either a 0 or a 1 is a float, and we'll cast that back to an int. Who was chosen? If player turn equals 0, else player turn equals 1. And up top, if it's 0, it's the hero. If it's 1, it's the skeleton. So we're going to turn these back on. So if player 1 was chosen, or if 0 was chosen, that's the player. If it's a 1, it's the skeleton. And we can test that real quick. So let's hit start. Oh, I've got to go ahead and hook that up. And that'll give me time to do this as well. I'm going to do the other thing with my game manager. I'm going to go ahead and hook up that start button. We'll add that event trigger, pointer down, new object, game manager, start pressed, and then also on this game manager I'm going to drag over from my free fantasy adventure music pack. That was one of the things I asked you to download. Oh, an Adventurer's Tale. Just going to drag that on there and make sure it is set to loop. And let's see how that sounds. So our game manager is going to play our music. I may try a time for battle. I think that's the one I had actually selected. So when we hit start, the hero gets to attack first. And we'll just try it again one more time to see if the skeleton gets drawn. And the skeleton does get drawn, so we can see that they're going back and forth on who gets drawn first to attack first. So back over here, we want to go ahead and play that. This is when the button's pressed again. This is our audio source. Play clip at point. We should have a fight clip. And then we can find the AR camera, and get its transform and its position as well. So what that does,
Fight.
tells them to fight and draws that first card, which is what we want. So there's some things will come, a couple of things will come back and add. The next thing we want to do is we've got to add in this ability to change the player. That's going to be in our game manager script. Well, the method will be in the game manager script, and then we will call that from the object script. And we're storing that in player turn. And this will be an if else as well. We're going to turn on the skeleton. We're going to turn off the player. By setting that to false. Now if it's not the player, that means it's a skeleton, so and we'll turn off the skeleton, and we'll turn on the player button so that those swap back and forth. So with that in place, what we're going to need to do is jump over to the object script. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to jump back over to Unity. I'm going to double click my object script. I'm going to need to come down here before we get started on any code changes and make sure that I am linked to that public game manager script. So I'm going to uncomment that line of code. I'm going to hit save. I'm going to go back to Unity. And once that compiles, when I look at my skeleton and I look at my sword and shield warrior, there will be a game manager script object here that I need to drag my game manager in for both of these entities. And now I'll jump back into that object script, and we'll look at the first, probably the easiest place to be able to work with that game manager script is right here inside the potion pressed, because it can ask the question, the if question. I'm going to put all of this code, existing code, inside there. I'm going to ask if my player number is equal to the GM script dot player turn, then I can go ahead and actually take one of these potions. Before we added this code in, you could take a potion at any time. Now we're going to say that only when it's my turn can I take that potion. And then I'm going to update or call that new player turn. So GM script dot change player turn should get called, comes over here to the game manager, checks to see whose turn it is, makes it the next player's turn, turns off and on the objects that need to be turned off and on. So we'll go ahead and test this out. Now this is only working right now for our potions. So I have to start the battle. So the skeleton has the option to go. He chooses a potion. You can't choose any more potions. The player can choose a potion. And so you can see how we're now going back and forth. Now the actual attack is not set up to change yet. We're going to do that next. Now, we're going to want to, in our object script, create another method, public method, that can be used to change the player. Not going to return anything. And it's simply going to call that GM script dot change player turn as well. And it's going to get called on the animation for damage. So when the enemy is done getting damaged, that's when we're actually going to change the turn. So I'm going to go back to Unity. I am going to select the skeleton damage. I'm going to go down to events. And really this is not going to get called till the very last frame. So again, I'm just going to pull over to the very last frame. I'm going to add an event. Make sure I'm on the last frame. I'm going to add an event. And we're going to call this change player. And apply. And then I'm going to go down and I'm going to select my get hit, the sword and the shield. I'm going to open up the window there, animation, the animation window. Same thing, I'm going to come down to the very end here. I'm going to add an event, and that is going to be change player. Again, so after that animation has played, that's when we should change the players. So let's start the battle. Skeleton goes first. Damage is done. Now it's the hero's turn. Damage is done. Hero can choose to use a health. Skeleton may skip this round. Now the skeleton may use a health. So we've got our turn-based working pretty well now. I think the last thing we need to work on is what happens when a player loses all his health and dies. So let's look at our object script. So here's where we know when the player dies. We just need to have something written to take care of that back over in our game manager script. So in our game manager script, I'm going to write another method. Again, just make sure it's not inside another method or outside of the class. We're going to take in the player number. In this incarnation, we're not going to do anything just yet with the player number, but what we'll want to do is turn on the title and turn on the Start Game button. So that's going to turn that game button back on. So now back over in my object script, I can make a call to this right after death. And then again, I'm going to pass my player number. Right now, we're not going to do anything with that, but we'll know what player died at a later date. So I'm going to save that. Jump back into Unity. Hit play.
Fight.
So the player dies. You'll see health is at 0. We still need to take care of some things here. We got to turn the skeleton attack off, and then when we try to start the battle again, the player is still in his death state, so we need to fix that as well. So in our game manager script, For my game over, I know I thought earlier, I noticed that skeleton button popped up right at the end. I need to make sure that player turn is set to 2, because once either the player or the skeleton dies, nobody's turn, so I don't want that button to pop up like it did right there at the end. And then when the game starts, when we press that start button, that's when we're going to need to reset our characters. So I'm going to come up here, and you'll notice we have both scripts right here. We haven't done anything with them yet. I'm going to reset the hero and reset the skeleton. Hero script dot reset character. Reset character, we haven't created that yet. We will in just a second. And then this will be skeleton script Now again, this reset character in the object script doesn't exist yet. We're going to save this. We're going to jump over to the object script. And again, just somewhere not inside of another method. So we're going to reset the character, which means reset the health. My health equals 100. Update text UI. Plus my health, so that redraws it. We're going to set the animation back to idle. And then reset the potions, which we have up top in game objects. So that's potion 2 and potion 3. Now when we come over here to game manager, you'll see that those are no longer giving us errors. So we'll try this out again. Alright, start out. Nobody has the ability to attack. At any point, one of these folks can choose to take a health vial. So the enemy passes away.
Fight.
I need to fix that right there so that looks like the last button on the screen is staying there. We'll need to fix that. And to fix it, we'll just jump into the game manager script. And down here when the game is over, if you remember, we already know what those buttons are. And up top we have those buttons linked here in Hero and Skeleton. We can get the game object and then do the set active again to false. And that is sitting in a variable called skeleton. Get the game object and set active again to false. And now we'll go back and see if that doesn't fix the problem.
Fight.
No buttons are down there now. We hit start.
Fight.
And looks like everything is started over.
Fight.
And then we can restart again. So this is a good base for our augmented reality game. This will be this started we're right exactly where we left off in class, and that should give you the ability to finish this up and turn this in for your lab assignment.